Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Himes here with my popcorn.
What's so funny?
My popcorn popping friend over there, Bob Stewart. Bob, how are you doing today?
What are you laughing at? Okay, you guys are making fun of me because of how I type, Chad. It's just how I type.
Bob,
I
the
can't
audience
change it.
can hear you typing in the podcast probably if they listen. As soon as we start rolling,
It's
start
just who
typing.
I am, Chad. It's just who I am.
Bob, I'm so excited to be here with you today as we continue going through the Win, Make, Give with Ben Kinney series. And we love our audience, but we're already laughing over here. So it's going to be another one of these possibly humorous ones.
Knock it off. This is a serious subject.
It's a very serious subject, but I am getting a lot of comments still about our pet peeves episode, the laughter and the fun that came along with that one, Bob.
We should do more fun episodes.
All right, give us some ideas, audience, if there's something that you want to throw at us for fun, because this episode we're about to record, Bob, came from an audience member.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the post, so forgive me. I can't give the shout out to who gave us this idea and said they were looking for this. Do you remember who it was for any reason?
I don't. I wonder
Okay.
if we couldn't dig it up somehow.
We might dig it up during the episode and give you a little love and give you a shout out. I'm not sure where it even was posted. And I don't want you to take the title of this episode thinking that we are cold-hearted or anything along those lines. Yet, Bob, we are going to discuss on this episode the benefits that have come from the pandemic. Now, our hearts are sent out to anybody who has been impacted health-wise, anybody who's had extreme challenges. We've followed along with many people on social media who have been diagnosed with COVID, and some had a very tough battle. Some sadly lost the battle. We send out our love and our sympathy to all of those people. Yet, one of the podcasts in the Win, Make, Give family is the Tell Me Somethin Good podcast with Clint Swindall.
Yep.
Now, if you haven't checked that one out, you got to go check that out as part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network. Go find Tell Me Somethin Good with Clint Swindall. It's fantastic. I listen to it on my way into the office before we record this, so I stay on top of them. And Clint is always reminding us to look for the good. He just did an episode about looking for the good, actually, quite recently. And Bob, we decided, after this comment from one of our listeners in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/winmakegive, to talk about some of the benefits and some of the good that did come in our lives from the pandemic. So, where do you want to start, Bob?
Oh, I was thinking maybe we attack it by doing like a business, something in business, Chad.
Okay.
Maybe something personally or in our family.
Yep.
Maybe something health-wise, and we just kind of do some buckets.
All right. A little health, wealth, leadership, and legacy,
What?
as Win, Make, Give is all about.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Well, then let's start there. Bob, the pandemic hit us. I'd have to go back and figure it out, but it can I just say 2 years for
Yeah,
argument's
we're
sake?
getting close. Yeah, we're
Right?
getting close to 2 years.
Actually, Nita and I moved back to Washington in September 2 years ago and celebrated the holidays, and then we were in lockdown.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 2 years. Give me a health benefit that has come to you that you have found through this time.
So at the very beginning of the pandemic, we started a little group that was a push-up group, and you joke because I'm not the healthiest guy, neither is Ben. You are,
Yep.
right? But so we had a group of guys, and there's actually like the number of push-ups that a man can do has a big indicator on your heart health.
Right.
And like somebody that can do 50 push-ups or more is like X% less likely to have heart. Like there's all these things around heart health and push. So we did a push-up challenge, and we held each other accountable and we got to a place where everybody in the group could do 50 straight push-ups, and a few of the guys were able to end up doing 100 straight push-ups. But so it was, I don't think we ever would have done that. I don't think that would have ever happened had it not been for COVID. We were all locked in our house every night. We were nowhere to go, nothing to do, right? And so we kind of formed a little group on a Facebook group, and we'd send videos of each other doing the push-ups, and it was an accountability thing, and it was good.
Excellent. Excellent. You know, on my side, when it comes to health, as you said, health's always been something, well, not always. It has
Recently,
not too recently, but yes, become extremely important to me. COVID really helped me step up the at-home training. I mean, we added the tonal in the house and stuff like that. I've hired a personal trainer. I'm working with Jackson Bloor from Tonal. You want to hear more about that, jump over to the 15-Point Plan podcast. We did an interview with Jackson. I've been giving updates, Bob.
Did you get a discount on coaching?
I won't get into that.
Okay.
Yet I will tell you, in the first month of it, Bob, I've lost 12 pounds and 5% body fat in the first month. I'm about
Dave, is that a lot? Is 5% body fat? I have no idea. Is
5% of body fat's is a good amount.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm getting healthier and healthier, and it's the pandemic who's forced me to train in a different way.
Are you getting younger over there? Like, as I look at you, like,
Love you, Bob.
Where'd the gray hair go? It's all gone.
I just shaved.
Oh, wait,
the whole
all
head.
your hair's
Yeah.
gone. My bad. Sorry.
I am turning 50 by the time this episode might air. I don't know. It's the end of November. I'm going to be turning 50, so we're going to be around there. And I had a goal to have single-digit body fat percentage before I turned 50. And thanks to Jackson and the training that COVID has forced me to switch to, I'm going to be there for my birthday accomplishing that goal. Now, I was talking with Dave beforehand. Now, for those of you who don't know who we're talking about, you obviously don't listen to too many of our episodes. Dave's the magic man behind the scenes. Dave's the guy who edits out when we say things we shouldn't say, although sometimes he leaves them in to make us look
I
ridiculous.
was just going to drop an F-bomb right there to see if it made it through the episode.
Dave's the guy who puts the sound effects in when the sound effects show up. Dave's the guy who takes care of everything. Without Dave, this podcast would be Bob, Ben, and I talking to ourselves in a room. I was asking Dave before the episode.
You get to hear my keyboard typing, though, probably a lot more often.
That's all you. Dave was telling me before the episode, one of the benefits that COVID brought to him in the health world was his son was diagnosed with diabetes. And he said that he can't imagine what it would have been like dealing with his younger son, dealing with the changes that diabetes brings, the nutrition changes, dietary changes that come along with that, especially with a kid who doesn't always get it the same, while going to school and while having all of that. So having taken the stress of being out of the house away, it's given Dave the opportunity to,
that's
help
one of
his
those,
son
like,
through that.
that really is look, I know Dave really well. That's a challenging thing, right? Like,
Yes.
And for his son and his whole family, but like to be able to find some positive in that does set your mindset for how you're going to deal with that. And so being able to say, look, wow, at least we were able to have him close to home, have him home every day, right?
Yep.
Be able to monitor his blood sugar and really help him build a routine around his diabetes that he could then take with him out to school. That's an awesome way to look at that, Dave.
Yeah, and folks, this is what we want you to be doing in the audience. That's why we're going through this, because there are wins in the health, wealth, leadership, and legacy area that you've been able to create. So, Bob, let's go to the next one. That's wealth. So talk to me about some of the benefits maybe that have hit you in the wealth world.
We did the whole episode here recently on my wife and I getting kind of recommitted to the
net worth
tracking our net worth. And I think the reality is the benefit that came out, we did the Wealth series on Win May Give podcast because we couldn't do it live.
Right.
And Win May Give before, and maybe even this podcast, to be quite honest. Like,
that's my business one. Don't go there yet.
Okay. Well, so we did the Wealth series because that is a class and an event that Ben used to teach once or twice a year up here in Bellingham, Washington, and people would fly in from around the country. And some of the people in this group that listen to the podcast that are on the Facebook group, they've been doing this longer than we've had the podcast. They've been tracking their net worth. They've been, leveraging these strategies for building your wealth for longer because they came to a live event with us up here in Bellingham before COVID. So I would say the Wealth series, and then my own personal kind of reconnection with tracking my net worth because of the Wealth series.
Okay. So folks, you can go to winmakegive.com/wealth and you can get right to the Wealth series. Or of course, you can get scrolling on wherever you get your podcast. You can go all the way back to episode 38 of season 1.
But can I keep going?
Of course.
Here'd be my second wealth kind of hidden benefit of COVID. I saved so much stinking money this year.
That's
last
mine.
year.
That's mine.
Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
We did. It's been a while now, but we did our taxes. Back for 2020.
Yes.
2020.
Yes.
Right. Earlier in 2021. And it was like comparing those to the year before in some of the categories, like eating out and our, what we what we did in vacationing
Wardrobe
and wardrobe,
yep.
all this stuff, right? Like it was like a forced savings in some way, right? Like,
Yeah.
look, I would have just as soon probably been out there able to take my kids to the movie theater, to the bouncy house, or to Disneyland, right? Don't get me wrong. But man, my bank account looked a lot better at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's absolutely mine under Wealth. I mean, yes, you're right. Giving to everybody the Wealth series we were able to create because of the pandemic and take so many people through that. And boy, we love when you come into the Facebook group and share with us. We just got a recent over $1 million on net worth post. You know, we love that. Nothing makes us happier when we get together to record these, to actually be celebrating you behind the scenes, seeing what you've done. And we love that we get to be a little part of it along the way. For me, Bob, oh my gosh, have we saved money. Now, have I spent money? Sure, because, you know, Netflix was something maybe I was going to get rid of. Can't get rid of that one, right? And we added Hulu and stuff like that. But it did force me to cut cable because I realized I wasn't watching so many of those things, and I finally woke up to it. It did get us to a point where, no, we're not dining out anywhere near as often. The money we are spending is going into experiences. Like you've gone on some great trips. We're going to our first Kraken hockey game, and we said, hey, we can spend a little bit more on the tickets because we haven't spent anywhere near as much money. And the money we have spent has almost gone into really like investment opportunity and improving our home. So we're only getting equity back from the money that we're spending right now. So I got to admit that during the pandemic, that saving money has been a massive opportunity, and awareness of our money through the net worth tracker has changed so much for us.
It would this is one of those, like, it's good that it's happening for us. It's the timing as it relates to COVID. So I've talked about this on some other, we're looking for an investment property.
Right.
And some of this savings has allowed us to accelerate when we would have been able to buy that investment property. And so now we're in a position to do that. The problem is we can't find
yeah. Problem is the market went up so high you can't find anything.
The market is so tight right now because people aren't putting their houses out there for a variety of reasons. But and I think COVID has something to do with that. So that's one of those, like, it's awesome we're there sooner than we probably would have been otherwise. The challenge is there's nowhere to buy right now. But
yeah. Okay. So next we go health, we go wealth, we go leadership.
So I would say, like, leadership. I would also just kind of point this to the business world, right?
Okay.
And like in our business world, what are some of these hidden benefits? I think one of the first things I would say is the proliferation of everybody's common use of the Zoom.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? Like, you and I have been using these tools for a lot. Like we were using them as GoToWebinar and things years before, right? When it was like basically us broadcasting one way to people. So we've been very comfortable with presenting online for years.
Yep.
But like COVID just, I heard somebody say recently that, like, any of the trends that were kind of happening, COVID compressed those trends by 5 to 10 years. And so I think it might have been Gary Vaynerchuk, but this idea that, like, look, we were all going to be doing the telemeeting Zoom deal, and work was always going to move towards a more remote working environment,
yeah.
right? Like that's just where technology and kind of human behavior is headed. This sped it up 5 to 10 years.
Sure.
I think that's a very profound statement. Again, I think it was Gary Vee that said that, but for us, it was great because we were already used to this medium. And so it just brought a whole bunch of other people to that medium that we were already used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we're talking business right now under that leadership title, yet, boy, it allowed me to reconnect with, high school buddies that we would only email and have these incredibly long email strings. And one of my high school friends doesn't reply well. So you get like all the messages showing up in the body of the email. It allowed us to say, hey, we can get together still visually and hang out and just giggle and laugh like we're all in the same room. That was something that people didn't even think about. We were very comfortable with the platform, yet we still weren't thinking about it as a social network. Sure. We were thinking about it as a business network. And look what Zoom has done to reconnect people. I mean, my mom's connecting with high school friends. They once a week get together and all chat. What else for business, Bob? I mean, I'll give you one of mine while you're thinking about some other business things. It built the Win, Make, Give podcast network, right? If it weren't for the pandemic, we possibly aren't here.
And just to add on to that, we'd probably be in a smaller room.
Much smaller.
Be like tripping over each other, but because we had to stay socially distanced, we have like the largest room in the building. Ben somehow was able to commandeer like the largest room in the building. So we've got this really awesome big room.
Don't tell people this because we've locked this off as the now recording.
This room is actually like this hidden gem. Before we started doing, I didn't even know this room here was in this building. I've been in this building for years before we started doing this. I had no idea this room was here, was the first thing. I wish we had a window where it's like in the middle of the building or something. It's just this cool little room though. Ben's outfitted it pretty nicely, right? We've got all the fun.
Yeah, you've probably seen some photos or on some of the
World War
Zoom
II
calls
posters
in the background.
We've got, what's this guy's name?
Dino,
the dinosaur from the Sinclair gasoline. He's got the Tootsie Pops. Tootsie Pop roll machine, Tootsie Roll Pop machine. Like, what? This thing is amazing. Mr. Al, how many licks on there? Like, so yeah, so we've got this is a cool room that we've been able to build out of this. And this has become this like Dave's little domain in here.
Office.
This is our audio visual room. We've got a black screen back here that we record for some of the different like Built How and some different things that we do around here. And we've all got our little desks here, and Dave's got his old audio set up. There's friggin' cords and microphones and stuff everywhere. But
Bob, you gave a nice little shout out there to the newest podcast of the Win Make Give podcast network, and that's Built How.
Oh, I did.
So if you are a real estate agent, these are real estate targeted conversations. You're going to want to check out the Built How podcast. You can go to the Win Make Give website. You can also go search for Built How wherever you get your podcast as our newest podcast on real estate trends and tips.
I love the birth of the Win Make Give network. Here's one, and this maybe goes back to the Zoom concept and kind of this people getting really comfortable. For us, in our my I don't know, I guess I'd call it my day job, right? The software company that we run, it was COVID forced us to connect with our clients, to really like almost like weekly and bi-weekly. In the very beginning, at three times a week, Ben and I would go out and spend an hour just connecting with our clients, teaching them how to use the software better, sharing best practices, exposing Ben's business and the big business he's built to these guys so they could learn from it. And we were doing it 3 days a week. I mean, it must have been, Dave could probably tell us, he had to trim all the videos and do all that. I mean, it was 3 or 4 months where we were doing it 3 days a week. And then we went to 2 days a week, and we've still, what are we?
Almost 2 years later.
22 months into this thing, we are still doing it 2 days a week. So it really forced us to go out and bring value to our clients. And what that forces you to do, by the way, is really up your skills.
For me, Bob, in my personal business, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching as well as teaching, training in the podcast here. It forced me to expand my schedule and grow whether I wanted to or not. Because opportunity said, nope, no more traveling and teaching and speaking, and I will be on the road again, coming to a city near you as soon as I possibly can, and this becomes a little easier to travel around the country. Yet it forced me to grow my coaching business, which then forced me to even be a better leader and a better coach into it because I took on so many more clients to be able to grow myself. So there has been a lot of business benefits for us. Can you think of, and I'm putting you on the spot, can you think of a business that benefited from the pandemic because so many things changed? The one that came to my mind first was, and there'll be a few that fit under it, Grubhub. All the food delivery people, because we couldn't go anywhere, but they were able to start look how their businesses all improved during this opportunity.
I mean, Zoom?
Well, sure, Zoom, of course. Don't we all?
Slack
we bought
was
Zoom
another
stock?
one that Slack is like
Peloton.
Peloton,
right?
Tonal. You said Tonal. Like,
yeah, they're growing. I wish I had bought Peloton stock instead of my Peloton sometimes.
I mean, Tonal's got LeBron James, for God's sakes, as their spokesperson now.
Yeah,
like, that
one of their they got a lot of athletes involved.
They're making money hand over fist if you can afford LeBron James as your spokesperson.
Watch for them on the IPO when it finally happens. Apparently, Tonal users are going
on that, because the last 3 IPOs I've tried to hit on Robinhood, I can't hit.
There's another company that probably benefited from all of this, because a lot of people kind of took that stuff to themselves at home. We were talking about one before we started recording, a company that really took advantage of COVID and the lockdown, and that was EXP.
Yeah.
right?
In our
In
kind
the
of
real
primary
estate
space, in the
industry,
real estate industry,
right?
yeah.
Because they were set up for the virtual world of real estate that all of a sudden now people were looking for that and they were already there in that platform,
Yeah.
right? There are a lot of companies that some companies sadly have gone out of business. Some people sadly have lost their company. Yet there are a lot of companies that pivoted really well or were conditioned and then given the gift of what ended up happening for them.
You know, it's funny. You said something that like spurred. If I can go back to wealth for just a
Sure.
second, you know, another one of the. Dave might, if he was close enough to kick me under the table here, he might kick me because you'll see in a second, Dave. Well, I started investing more than I was before. And Robinhood, I started, so we've got this little group where we will trade stock tips. Not that.
Yeah, let's be clear. Dave and I are not in that group.
Yeah, you're not in the
you
group.
guys
so
talk
here's what's
about it
happened
without
to you
us.
guys is you've gotten a couple of the like on the side tips and maybe not the best ones. Dave, I don't, he's chuckling over here. Anyway, so it was this group. Like
Yep.
I mean, I would have never, this is ridiculous. I can't even believe, I would have never bought Dogecoin if it wasn't for the pandemic. And look, I'm not a Dogecoin millionaire. Like there's some people out there like this cryptocurrency but I bought a pretty little amount and it's turned into a pretty bigger amount. And
I still don't understand it.
I don't either necessarily. But when I look in my Robinhood, it's you know,
More money.
9,000% or whatever it is. But just the habit of so now I've got my money that goes towards my 401k and my IRA and these different things, but I do set a little bit aside to kind of play the stock market, right? Because I'm not a professional, so I really am playing with it. But it's, you know, I guess maybe in the last year, Chad, COVID's made everybody seem like a stock picking expert.
Yes, exactly. Something. I don't know. All right, here's 2 words that fit under business that were a benefit, and these are Dave's words. I asked Dave before this, I said, Dave, give me some benefits that happened in your world. And Dave said to me these simple 2 words when I said, what's a benefit that came from this? And he said, private bathroom.
Private bathroom?
Yeah, he said, you're never going to get me to work in the office again full time without private bathroom. He says, when I work from home, I have my private bathroom and everybody leaves me alone.
That makes a lot of sense.
You know, instead of going into the community bathroom here, private bathroom.
So, yeah, doesn't necessarily ring as much for me, Dave, because I have been working from home for 12 years or so, a long time. You know, I come into the office once a week, twice a week or something, but so I've had my private bathroom for a long time, but it is a pretty nice perk, isn't it, Dave?
All right, so let's keep going. Health, wealth, leadership, legacy. So I've got one for myself already, Bob. Have you seen a benefit that would fit under legacy that you can share?
This one's tough for me. I don't know. Here's what I would say. Like, I really like. First off, I don't know that I would could clearly define for you like what my legacy is or what I want it to be. Right. So that's the first challenge for me when I'm like, how do I tuck something under legacy? Well, I don't even
Sounds
sure
like we have an episode coming where we walk Bob through it.
But I place a really high value on relationships.
Okay.
And so if I was to take it in kind of that vein, I guess, which might be, you know, health, wealth, leadership, and legacy. Really what I'm looking for is where can I fit personal in here somewhere, Chad? And so I'm gonna cover that here. And there's 2 things that I think have come out of this for me. The first one is, and it's not that I wasn't doing this before, but like really dedicated connection time with my wife.
Yes.
And, you know, we have small kids, and going into this pandemic, our kids would have been 3 and 1.
Okay.
And I think we were getting to this place where when you have young children, they can start to totally dominate your life.
Yes.
In every way, right? In every minute, in every hour. And you get to the end of your day and you're like, put the kids to bed and you don't even want to talk to your spouse because you're just so exhausted from work and everything, right? And then you put that extra stress of COVID on top of it. And it's just a lot, right? You're living in their house and nobody can go anywhere. And but out of that and kind of realizing this is happening, we're like losing our identity here to our children. We've instituted, and, you know, huge kudos to my mother-in-law, Diane. Thank you so much. She comes over once a week. She watches the boys, and my wife and I have date night. And we instituted it really early in COVID, even though like our date nights, we didn't have anywhere to go. Like there was no restaurants or anything. We were like going down and taking a walk on the, around the lake or something. Yeah, just whatever works. But so I maybe the legacy component is I feel like I have a stronger marriage out of COVID. That'd be the first thing.
Okay. Second thing?
The second thing is maybe I'm the only one that this happened to, or maybe there's a lot of people feeling this way, but I really do feel like this COVID allowed me to really zero in on who my true friends are.
And did Dave and I make that list?
Well, I mean, you guys are in my pod, right? You're in my COVID pod. So yeah, I got a pretty small group. I had a pretty small group before this, but like, you realize when going and like meeting with somebody could potentially like pass a deadly disease around, right?
Yep.
You realize like, well, who's worth doing that with?
Sure.
And so I have a really good sense today of who those people are that I feel like they're literally like worth that.
Yeah. And as you're saying it, I want to say a big thank you to Dave for trusting us with the challenges he was having at home with his son going through everything and how extreme he was being about it, but still coming in here, being part of the podcast, sitting down with us and saying, hey, I feel safe with you guys. I know that you guys are there for me and that you're not going to bring something in here.
Dave, he told me if I even step inside of 10 feet of him, that he would like step on my Jordans. So I haven't been closer than 10 feet to Dave like in years.
That would explain how you guys say hello from across the room still. And Bob, I'm going to tell you, we don't look at it because we don't think this way. You mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to tell you a piece of your legacy that's going to be left behind years from now, and that's the Wealth Series. We've had guests who have been on that we've interviewed before that said, oh my gosh, you guys have so much fun, and you guys share some great stuff, and we love the podcast. But I'm going to tell you, Bob, whether you know it or not, for every person who does come and post in our Facebook group or reach out to one of us and tell us something about how the Wealth Series has impacted them, there's 10 people out there that we don't hear from. And we are creating opportunities for those people that one day someone's not even going to know who Bob Stewart was, yet it's going to be because of Bob Stewart that a legacy has been left. So I want to let you know that is something you're leaving behind.
Super humbling. It's hard to, it's hard to even think in those terms, right? That like we're impacting people's lives. So
I got for my legacy, Bob, I'll tell you something that came out of the pandemic. And yes, you're on my short list. You'll get a copy of the manuscript before I publish.
Because you know how much I love.
I know you love that insider information from past episodes. Yet it has finally forced me to stop saying I'm going to write a book one day. And Bob, I'm within 60 days of my book being published.
Awesome.
So there's a legacy that I'm going to leave that'll hopefully sit on everyone's bookshelves. Hopefully, audience, you'll support me as we get closer to it. When this sale happens, you'll be able to get yourself a copy.
I'll give you one last legacy because I mentioned my wife. I mentioned my friends. My boys are like massively important to me. And one of the things that came out of this pandemic, and it's funny because I mention this all the time on the podcast, and mostly I mention it in passing or as a joke, but it forced me to focus on my mental health and like fix some. Like I was. Well, how do you say this? Like I was a damaged child. A lot of us are damaged children, right? But I had scars that I'd carried over into my adulthood. And it's funny enough, I went to my first therapy, and I've done therapy over the years here and there. I went to my first therapy appointment in January of like here, where I've now been really dedicated to it for like 2 years. And I'd done it some other times, but by the way, if you're ever thinking about doing that's, finding the right therapist is like the just absolute key. But I did it like 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. It might have been a month. And then it like on my second or third, so I went in 2 times in person. And then the third one, she was like, I can't, like my office is closed down. Like, can we do this on Zoom or whatever? Which by the way, was like way better for me. I was like, hell yeah. Like I don't have to try to drive there right after work to get there in 30 minutes and be panicked. I hate being late. Right. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. I can do it on Zoom. So focusing on my own mental health, I don't want like the scars of my childhood to get passed on to my children. Yep. So I think a lot of our legacy is what we pass on to our children. And that's that thing that kind of lasts for this goes from generation to generation. So focusing on my own mental health so I can pass on a great legacy to my boys, I think is.
I think there are a lot of people out there who have taken on new hobbies right? We've seen Ben talk about learning the guitar. He took up whittling.
Yeah, he was whittling.
For a while. I'm waiting for a little wizard that he's gonna make so I can have a Ben Kinney collectible. Maybe we'll put them in the new Win Make Give store. Maybe we can get Ben to carve enough of them to put them in the store. We're hoping that you out there can take a moment. And yes, it's been a tough 22 months. It has been hard for people that are extroverts to be away from other people. It has been a challenge to work from home for some people. It has been job loss for some people. Yet we know if you're a Win, Make, Give listener, you can take a minute and you can find the something good that happened over the last 22 months because we want to know what it is. So we've shared ours. Heck, we even shared some of Dave's, whether he wanted to or not. We just put them out there. We want you to come to that Facebook group. A reminder, it's facebook.com/group/win-make-give. And we want you to just find the post from this episode, and we want to hear from you. Something good that happened during the pandemic. Until our next episode, do good.